Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call the Illinois Liquor Control Commission meeting to order. Let the record reflect it is Wednesday, February 17th at 1:01 p.m. As a preliminary matter, this is Chair Berg speaking. Before we get started, I would ask that everyone joining us please be patient and respectful as we navigate this meeting remotely. In order for the meeting to run smoothly, please speak only when it's your turn. At this time, allow me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Commissioner Span Cooper.
Here.
Hi.
Hi.
Gibbons.
Present.
Commissioner LaMalfa.
Present.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Present.
Mr. Powell.
Present.
Sanchez.
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chima Enya.
Present.
Rick Haymaker.
Here.
Avi Zizuk.
Here.
Dean Argyris.
Present.
Dushanka Marjana.
Present.
Michelle Flagg.
Present.
Jason Youngberg.
Present.
Les Peterson.
Present.
Are there any other staff members on the line? All right. Today's meeting, which is convened remotely via WebEx events. Normally, the Illinois Liquor Control Commission would hold meetings at the James R. Thompson Center in Chicago. However, on March 13, 2020, Governor Pritzker issued Executive Order 2020-04, issued by Executive Order 2020-01, which closed the James R. Thompson Center to members of the public. The second meeting of the Illinois Liquor Control Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Public Act 101-0640 and Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2021-01 issued on January 8, 2021, which reissued Executive Order 2027, issued March 16, 2020, which suspended the Open Meetings Act provisions relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body. The Open Meetings Act requires public bodies to allow for public comment according to the rules of the public body. This meeting will feature public comment. Members of the public interested in commenting at this meeting were asked to provide their comment in writing via email by 5 p.m. yesterday. Pursuant to Section 100.410F of the Administrative Rules governing the ILCC, those who wish to speak during public comment were asked to pre-register via email by 1 p.m. yesterday. Those individuals will be called upon and granted permission to speak during this public comment portion of this meeting. Those individuals who pre-registered, please ensure your information matches your WebEx ID. Please note that this meeting is being recorded as well as transcribed by a court reporter and that attendees are participating by web audio conference. The agenda for this meeting has been posted on the website. We recommend members of the public follow the agenda as posted. Before turning to the first item, allow me to cover some ground rules. I, Chair Berg, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes and to assist the court reporter. For any response or comment on the item, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and always state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Secretary Argyris, please call the roll.
Chair Berg.
Here.
Commissioner Gibbons. Commissioner Polito Sanchez.
Here.
Commissioner Span Cooper.
Here.
Commissioner LaMalfa.
Here.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Here.
And Commissioner Powell.
Here.
Thank you. Item number 2, do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting held on January 20th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
It's been probably moved in second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Chair Berg.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons.
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez.
Yes.
Commissioner Span Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell.
Yes.
and Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 3, receive Executive Director Enya's report.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Thank you again for the opportunity to come before you all and share what has transpired, the developments over the past month. It'll be a brief director's report this month. An hour ago, the governor did his budget address. We tuned in to that address. We are excited that we've been able to navigate these difficult budgetary times as the Illinois Liquor Control Commission, and very much so streamlined our budget to incorporate the cuts as requested by the governor's office, but also maintain our operations and still be able to accommodate the hiring in the enforcement division that we seek to do. And so in light of the governor's budget address, we will now look towards the General Assembly to see what comes of the budget for this year. But we are well equipped at this moment and well positioned at this moment to continue our core mission, which is to prevent the underage consumption of alcohol, maintain orderly markets, and fairly regulate this industry. And so with that being said, commissioners, we sent a draft a few weeks ago, about a month ago, of our strategic plan and our transition plan for this coming year. That draft was widely accepted and had since been sent to the publishers in the state to publish the actual document. So you all will be receiving the final version of that document within this week once we get it back from the publishers. And so thank you all for the feedback. Thank you to the staff. I can't speak more highly of all of the staff that committed their time and effort into visualizing how they want to continuously improve the commission and weaving that all together. And so thank you to the staff and thank you to the commissioners for your input. That plan includes the transition plan. It includes our strategic plan for this year. It also includes the FY21 budget, a summary of all of our COVID directives over the previous year. It also includes our organizational chart and our numbers in terms of affirmative action and equal employment opportunity, which I'm glad to report we have met and exceeded all of our affirmative action numbers, in addition to the budget performance that we had for last year. So with that being said, I believe that we are in a good position, having listened to the governor's budget address and staying in contact with the governor's financial analysts to make sure that the commission is well equipped to execute on our mission for this year.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board members on the director's report? There are none. Item number 4, receive ILC operations and PA 100-1050 report from Director Enya.
Thank you again, Chair. The basic update is that we are still working remote. And this sort of goes into the preparation that we have for last year. We are still working remote in an attempt to keep all of our staff safe throughout this pandemic. We are working with Central Management Services and the governor's office to begin to start estimating when we will be able to return to the office. But we are sort of waiting on word from public health officials in the governor's office. And until that time, our primary focus has been to maintain and enhance our operations remotely, knowing that that is indeed where the future is going, particularly in the government space. Since last month, there has been an announcement of the Thompson Center sale. And so that is a long time coming. We are currently stationed in the Thompson Center, but our office, since we were ahead of the ball in moving the process forward, will be housed in the Daily Plaza. So very central to the City Hall and to other agencies that may be in the Blanding building. We're having conversations with CMS to make sure that Department of Revenue, that we have proximity to the Department of Revenue, as well as the Secretary of State's office, just for ease of access to our licensees. In addition to that, as of February, we brought on our new HR manager, Laveris Jeffries, and so she's now getting acclimated to the office. She will be stationed in Chicago and travel back and forth. So at our next commission meeting, she will join to say hello. But her primary objectives at this point are to ensure that we finish the reorganization of the enforcement division. So getting the titles through Central Management Services and their processes, getting our investigators on board, our trainees on board, and really just executing on the vision that we set over a year ago to make sure that we have the top line enforcement division in the country. So that's Laveris's primary objective, in addition to employee morale and training and other things that will be under her purview. So we're happy to have her on, and she'll be joining to be introduced to the staff, to the commissioners at our next meeting. Some other positions that we have pending, the administrative services manager, working with the labor and the unions on that position. As I mentioned, inspectors and the supervisors in the enforcement division are all currently pending with the Department of Central Management Services review of those job descriptions, et cetera. So we expect to have that process completed before the end of March, and then we'll be able to move forward in filling our ranks as planned in previous years. Again, to mention that we do have the budget allocated and available to make those hires and stay within the budget, the budgetary constraints. That concludes the ILCC operations portion.
Thank you, Director Enda. That was a lot of info there. I'm glad we're moving. Any questions or comments from the board?
This is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. I have a question for you, Chima. You had said that you've been in discussions with CMS and the governor's office in terms of when to return. Do you have an idea of when it's likely that to return to the physical office and not the remote?
We're hoping before the end of this year. That's contingent on continuing to make progress with the deployment of the vaccine. Our highest priority is just making sure that staff are not in confined areas where not necessary, especially if we can meet and exceed expectations around productivity and work product while being remote. But we know that eventually we have to get back into the office. And so we just want to make sure that we're listening to the experts on that and that we're being very, very diligent about that, knowing that even in our ranks currently, we have individuals like myself who have lost people to COVID-19. So it's particularly sensitive, but we know that we still have work to do in the office.
Another question related, you may or may not know the answer, but what is the status of, in terms of Illinois as a whole, in terms of vaccine distribution?
That is, I don't know the exact percentage. I would be able to check with the Department of Public Health and get you that information. I know that they are working very diligently, not only to get the vaccine out, but to find strategies to encourage people to take it. And so it's one thing to deploy, it's another thing to overcome the fears that many individuals have with the vaccine itself. So I know that that's something that they're working on very diligently. We would encourage our staff at whatever point in time they become eligible to receive the vaccine to get it. And hopefully that would go a long way in terms of enabling us to get back into the office and to our normal operations.
And the reason I bring it up, Chima, is being in here in Arizona in January, they started very quickly and very aggressively opening up a stadium, a sports stadium, the Cardinals State Farm Stadium, and it was 24/7. And to this day, it's still 24/7. So they very quickly went from 75 plus to 65 plus. And I've been just obviously seeing it more every day. I just see it in the news, et cetera. I've been pretty impressed at how much they've been able to do, and they continue to open up locations all over the city, the state. So what that may be worth or not worth, I'm just curious what,
Absolutely.
Illinois is doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, moving on. Item number 5, receive COVID-19 directives report from Director Enya.
Just to piggyback on a follow-up to the question that we just received, currently across the state, we are in phase 4 of the governor's Restore Illinois plan. And so we see across the state a reopening, a phased reopening of establishments that still must abide by the governor's executive orders. But we do see an increase in the amount of local municipalities as well as local municipalities that are allowing for increased capacity at bars and restaurants. So that's something that I wanted to update the commission on. I know earlier this year into last year, we were at various phases and tiers. And so we do see forward progression with regard to the COVID-19. We have not issued any new directives. Our objective right now is to continue to assess what questions are coming in. And as we get questions that continuously hit on the same topics, we want to make sure that we are updating our Q&A. And so that has been our primary focus, and that concludes the COVID directives portion for today.
Thank you, Director Vigna. Any questions for the board on the COVID-19 directives?
Hi, this is Commissioner Polito Sanchez again, related to COVID, but more specifically for the carryout, being able to carry out something to drink, a single serve. What's the status of that? Is that still going to exist once we go back to, fully employed, fully, whatever the fully looks like in the marketplace? Is that something is that just temporary for during this period, or is that something that's going to continue?
That bill, the Cocktails to Go bill, was sponsored with an understanding from both the sponsors and the commission that it would be temporary. It was a temporary measure and to provide additional revenue options for these licensed restaurants and bars. Recent bill was introduced in the General Assembly that would seek to extend the sunset of that provision. And so we still have yet to see whether it will be a permanent version done through the legislature, or whether they would continue to extend, while we also have an opportunity to do an assessment on that bill, on compliance with that bill, and on the impact that it actually had on the industry. We would hope to be able to use that assessment and surveys of the industry to help inform whether it should be permanent or not. And so that's still pending. We know that there will be legislators that will seek to make it permanent.
Right.
The most recent bill, there was some pushback on that, just to extend it for a finite amount of time.
Yeah, that's the reason I asked is because I want, my assumption is that there has been some momentum picking up. It's hard for government to give something and government to take it back, right? So I think an assessment in the marketplace with the industry of how that has worked and whether it is still something that we should have is an important discussion to be had. Absolutely.
We fully expect for that robust discussion to take place in the General Assembly. As I mentioned, the current bill and the current law as written expires later this year. And so we hope that that conversation can take place in the General Assembly before the GA recesses. We'll be able to get that information out definitively to our licensees.
Okay, thank you, Chima.
This is Don O'Connell. I have the question along the lines of what Commissioner Polito Sanchez was talking about. That in recent discussions with legal, they told us that the sunset on that feature is coming along. It was being pushed back considerably. I think 2024 maybe. Is that bill has not passed, right?
Has not passed at this moment, no. We fully expect, as mentioned, there to be an iteration of that to extend either for an extended period of time, as you mentioned, or indefinitely. And so I know that, for example, Dan Klausner with the ILBA has mentioned, they will be seeking to introduce some legislation. We welcome that. We welcome that conversation. We know that the current bill expires on the 1st of June. And so with that, we have a little bit of time to have those conversations. We understand and are receptive to those conversations, knowing that for many, that provision allowed companies to bring in revenue. We still need to also keep in mind the other side of that conversation with advocates who were very concerned about the transport of alcohol in that manner. And so as we did earlier, we will continue to serve as a facilitator of that conversation, and ultimately it'll be the legislative prerogative to either pass or either extend for a period of time or indefinitely. But we look forward to that conversation.
And I understand the impetus of extending it, especially because it doesn't look like COVID's going to be over for a while. However, in your discussions, I would hope that the commission would prefer a shorter sunset extension because of all the potential problems with the delivery of alcohol.
Absolutely. We fully intend to present that side of the conversation as well, and just make sure that all viewpoints on this particular conversation are heard at the table. We will have that with the industry groups. We will have that with the legislators, and ultimately leave it to the legislators to make the decision as they had before. But we do indeed to your point, Commissioner O'Connell, we know that there are major concerns, and we know on both sides. One, from the very real concern about being able to keep business doors open and survive this pandemic. And then from the other side, there's another public health and public safety component that we heard very loud and clear earlier this year. So we're open to revisit that conversation, and I plan to keep the commission up to date on how those conversations are going.
Thank you.
I just like to reinforce that not only, Chima, to continue the conversation, but also to make sure that we're at the forefront of it, because we should be, we as a commission should have a position on it, right? We should have a position on it. I mean, what's going to happen if it's right now, the sun sets the end of the year, the summer's going to happen, right? The summer, if everything goes according to plan, the majority of this country will be vaccinated, right? So people will be out more, they will be imbibing more, etc. So more than likely, they're going to extend it because it's going to, they're going to do better in the summer, right? So I just feel like we want to make sure that we have a position on it and that we are well informed on, not that I'm saying you're not, but I just feel like it's, picking up momentum. And like I said, it's pretty hard to take away something that government gives, right? It's a tough one, right? Yeah, it's very tough. Once you give something, it's very hard to take it back. So, I leave it in your good hands to continue to guide us and help us form the position on it, and however that process looks.
Yes, and to that point, Commissioner, we did take a position on the bill and provided basically our analysis on the bill prior to it passing. The last time, we are continuing to work with the Prevention Task Force that basically is comprised of all the individuals that do have concerns as well, and researching underage access to alcohol, and so that's a conversation that we're keeping going, just to make sure that if this is going to be done, it is done to the best of the state's ability, and the legislature passed a bill, if it were to pass, that preserves our core mission, which is to protect the health and safety of the state of Illinois. So we will duly note it, and we will be firm in those conversations to make sure that all of those concerns are accounted for and addressed.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question for Chima or comment? Moving on, item number 6, receive update on ILC legislative proposals from Director Enya.
Yes, so over the past month, we took some time to work with each of the commissioners to go over just some general legislative proposals. Of those proposals, at this moment, 5 are ready to move forward, and we will be soliciting input and moving those forward through the legislative process. The first of which is the authorization to expend funds for evidence. A lot of these are technical in nature, not necessarily very outward facing, but the next is fine tuning our ability to seize alcohol that relates to alcoholic seizures during investigations, and really identifying our jurisdiction and how we work with local governments, et cetera, during that alcoholic seizure process. We are making modifications to discovery and statute of limitations, and we are really looking into our authorization for inspections. Again, a jurisdictional item that we wanted to clarify, which would help our enforcement division. And then a very, very technical fix, which is just modifying our pension formula in our enforcement division to be in line with what it should be. So all 5 of those initiatives we will be sharing publicly and looking to move forward with those initiatives in this General Assembly, identifying Shell Bill's sponsors. And we don't foresee there to be any real opposition to those. And so a few others have been tabled. I know there were questions about ID checks and other things. Those have been tabled for further discussion. And so that would be our first iteration of legislative initiatives that are going forward. There is another piece of another concept that was shared with the Commission, the Liquor Industry Recovery Act. That is an act basically to help the industry recover far beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, but also addresses a reoccurring theme that we've heard in our commission meetings around diversity and inclusion. So the documentation that I provided was simply for you all to review at this point in time, and we can field questions on that at whatever point in time throughout the next month. But we foresee that it will not have any significant opposition. We are currently refining the concept. It will have to be reviewed by the governor's office because there are budgetary implications. But by and large, we wanted to provide, at the very least, the concept and the bullet points around helping this industry get back to full health. And so, in a nutshell, the 5 pieces that you all have reviewed and approved will move forward. The Liquor Industry Recovery Act, we will continue to have conversations on pending you all's review and review by the governor's office before transitioning that through the legislative process.
Director Chima, it's Commissioner Span Cooper. I did have an opportunity to read the document. I think it's in the right direction and a great thing to do. I did want to just bring up one issue in it. You talk about severe hardship. And I know you said we'll talk about this maybe in the next meeting or so, but I would advise you to define what that is. Severe hardships. I just remember in the PPP, big companies having severe hardships look a lot different than when my company has a severe hardship. And so I think if we define that, it will save you gray hair later in the process.
Absolutely. And one of the provisions in the proposal is around the annual revenues in order to ensure that small companies are the primary benefactors of the proposal. And so all of those things, I appreciate that comment, Commissioner, and that is duly noted.
Commissioner Gibbons? Chima?
Yes.
As you work through this, who in our staff will deal with the press if in fact it comes to that?
Who in our staff,
Yeah.
if we get any questions from the press, that would be Michelle Flagg. She is our PIO, our Public Information Officer. If we were to get any FOIAs, that would be Avi, who handles our FOIA requests. And so, pending approval, we foresee that this would be a proposal that is well received from not only legislators. We've already, this is an aggregation of a lot of recommendations and ideas on how to help the industry recover. So we know that we'll have the support of many legislators. We know that we'll have the support of the broad support of the industry. We know that the governor's office in concept is supportive, but we need to get down to the details of the budgetary aspect of this bill and the implementation of it. It's not about for us moving quickly. We need to make sure that all commissioners have every question answered. And from there, we want to make sure we do our due diligence to make it a seamless process through the General Assembly with resounding yes votes. And so with that, that concludes the legislative section of my presentation, and I'm open to any additional questions.
Chairman, this is Commissioner O'Connell again.
Yes.
Just a question. Well, it's not even a question, I guess. It's on the proposal that to help businesses that are having problems. I think it's a great idea, but the real problem here is in the budgeting, I'm sure, and the budget questions when we talk about wiping out income from license renewals and that type of a thing. I see that the private sector is would be asked for donations, etc. But with all of the budgetary problems, is it realistic to reduce income and also give grants? I think.
Yeah. So
I just don't totally understand all that.
Absolutely. So yes, we are in a very difficult budgetary time. We know that there are talks around additional federal dollars for COVID. Federal dollars actually went to fund the big grant programs that are at the Department of Commerce right now. And so that's another option potentially that can be discussed for feasibility. At this present moment, the liquor industry provides tax revenue to the state. Those taxes go towards the general revenue fund. They go towards capital projects across the state. In this particular time where the industry members are having significant challenges, I think it's worth the conversation to see if a portion of those dollars that are already collected can be allocated to fund this initiative, if possible. And so just to and for the portion that you're talking about with the license renewals, that would be included in that amount. All of these are COVID-related challenges, and hopefully we can identify the dollars available. Considering that we've been excellent stewards of our resources thus far, we wouldn't want to do anything that impedes our operational capacity, but we would want to identify opportunities either from the federal government or we can navigate the state budget, GRF, to fund this project. And if I may, I can go through, if it pleases the commissioners, just some of the finer points of this proposal in hopes of shedding a little light and talking through what those items will potentially be.
This
If
is
the commissioners want to do that.
I'd love to hear it. I mean, and before you do, I just want to commend you on this, and I know how diligent you work on all of these projects, and I'm very excited to be a part of it and support and give my 2 cents where applicable.
Okay. And again, thank you for that, Commissioner. Again, this is a strictly proposal for conversation that we look to have with the governor's office, and we have been engaged in conversations with the other agencies, Department of Revenue, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, the Illinois Community College Board. And so what this proposal essentially does, it establishes the Liquor Industry Recovery Fund. It also increases our substance abuse prevention allocation by, at the very least, 20%. We know that due to COVID, there has been an increase in domestic violence and other home-based substance abuse-related issues. And so, to the extent possible and feasible without hurting our budget, we would like to see a general increase in the allocation for substance abuse prevention. This proposal also provides $20,000 grants to minority businesses for the purpose of business creation and growth, and companies under $1 million of revenue. A lot of the conversations around diversity and inclusion and really seeing the industry flourish, but also be reflective of the state of Illinois, the population of the state of Illinois. That is one of the tenets of having an ordered market. And so those grants will be made available to MBEs for business creation, which in turn will help our revenues rebound. In addition to that, the next point is $10,000 COVID relief grants for licensed businesses across the state that are under $1 million in revenue. We know that $10,000 really makes a difference for entities that have under $1 million in revenue, and we can, continue to have conversations about the amount of resources available, especially considering the federal dollars that may be coming down, which are already flowing through the big program, the big grant program. Two other components, waiving the license renewals for 2 years for select license categories. And so to your point earlier, Commissioner Span Cooper, about identifying those license categories that were hardest hit by this pandemic and providing them a little bit of relief over the next 2 years, which amounts to a significant savings for our licensees, and waiving license renewals for 1 year for new applicants. And so again, that is contingent on having the budget to do so, but we are open to having those conversations and ensuring that we're doing that, no stone is left unturned when it comes to providing relief. One of the key components of this proposal is creating a private donation tax credit. And so at the Department of Revenue, there's a program called the Invest in Kids Tax Credit. What this program does essentially is allow private citizens and corporations to contribute money to private scholarships. Well, in this case, we are allowed, through the fund that we've created, we're allowing private individuals and corporations to contribute money to this fund. And when they contribute that money, they will receive 40% of their contribution back in the form of a tax credit. And so if someone were to give $100,000, they would get a $40,000 tax credit. And so that's one thing that we've seen be very successful in the Invest in Kids program, over $30 million a year. I think at the very least has gone through that program. Something worth exploring, in this case, to provide relief through the grants and through the grants that we are seeking to provide. A couple other things that this program does. It creates a task force. This task force will study the participation of minorities, women, and persons with disabilities in the alcohol beverage industry, and aggregate all of the available certificate and degree programs that we have at our great community colleges and universities that are based on the licensed industry. And so what that would enable us to do is both look at the industry to be able to pull folks together to have those discussions and to be able to identify pipelines that we can create to make the industry, to encourage the industry to be more inclusive. A couple other points that the proposal includes is the Student Assistance Commission, the Licensed Beverage Scholarship. And so a lot of the times what we've seen, and even what we saw in some of the comments that we received from the industry, were access to capital and also education and pipelining people into jobs. And so what these scholarships will do will provide an opportunity. A lot of times these programs, these certificates can be cost prohibitive. So it's granting a scholarship for individuals to get into these programs and to finish these programs in hopes of then getting into the industry as either an employee or an owner. And so there's a minority scholarship and then a general industry scholarship to really target those individuals that were in the liquor industry, the licensed beverage industry before, and may have lost their jobs as a result of COVID, who want to get back in as employees or even owners, but would need that additional certification and education in order to do so. And so it would support those scholarships. The other points of this proposal, eliminating certain bond requirements. We have heard time and time again from our licensees that some of the bond requirements that they must go through in order to get their license are very arduous and time consuming and cost prohibitive. And so we have worked with the Department of Revenue on on that issue, got it passed, but need to make some minor tweaks to it. So that will be included in this proposal. This proposal this act, if passed, will sunset in 10 years and restore the funding structure as it exists today. And so again, this is two primary objectives. One, to provide support through to our industry through this COVID period to get to the other side and be revitalized. And two, to encourage the industry to be more inclusive in diversity across the state. And so there'll be additional reporting requirements for us just to be able to monitor our progress. But in a nutshell, that is the proposal that we have. And we can itemize all of the benefits of this proposal. Again, it is contingent on approval from the governor's office and being able to identify the funds, GOMB, in this current environment. But what we really want to look at this as is an opportunity to look long term and say, if we can create more businesses, more entities through this effort, then that would actually increase tax revenues and job opportunities over time. And so the fund will be housed, and the Comptroller's Office will create the fund. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity will administer the grants. The Department of Revenue has worked on our structure for the tax credits, and the Liquor Control Commission will work primarily on the license renewals and the diversity and inclusion initiatives. Around the scholarship aspect, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, who we've spoken with, will administer these scholarships. And so I think it must be noted, we are not recreating the wheel. We have identified already existing infrastructure and have seen where these programs have worked and are using those models that we've seen in the cannabis industry, the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, the Department of Commerce, et cetera, to craft this proposal that we would like ultimately to be reviewed and approved by the governor's office. And I know that's a lot, but that is the nuts and bolts of this proposal.
Thank you. That's a great outline.
I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Chima, it sounds very ambitious. It sounds like a pretty strong private-public partnership. And I commend you for that. Are there other states that are doing this? Are there some models out there, or is this just new innovation that's going on?
It is fairly new innovation. We have seen in New York a similar program in terms of cash grants going to licensees through a state agency or a quasi-state agency. So we drew from that. We looked at that model as well.
Okay.
And took the things that we took from there.
Great, thank you.
This is Commissioner Lamalfa. And Chima, this is a question you've probably, just given how detailed your presentation just was, you probably thought about this already, but when I think about the industry as a whole, there's clearly been some of our industry members have suffered more than others. Some of them have actually done better during these times, thinking specifically like manufacturers, distributors, obviously not our retailers. But when I'm thinking about the private funds and where they're going to come from, And I already saw you nodding, so I'm going to probably, this will probably be very short, but just in thinking about those, like it would be great to have an idea of how many of our members are actually in a better position and potentially encourage them to participate in this program, not just with funds, but to the extent that we're thinking about any task force or committees, it would be great to invite them to the table, especially given our greater DE&I efforts. This may be something that they voluntarily, would want to pick up and run with and become a bigger part of it, because I understand creating something like this for 10 years because it's clearly needed. But if this sort of becomes part of like the DNA of the industry, right? How amazing would that be? Because like you just stated, just the long-term effects of creating a more equitable system are just to the benefit of everyone. So again, I saw you nodding, so it seems like it's something that you've probably considered already.
Yes, so in the actual language, we detail what that task force, a proposal on what that task force would be, who would comprise that task force. And so it does have industry members from each tier represented on both the interagency task force and the general task force on diversity and inclusion. And so, yes, we did want to make sure that we bring all the parties to the table while not being overly, cumbersome, but getting to the meat and potatoes of what of the questions that we need to answer in order to move the ball.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Chima. Item number 7, receive division reports on licensing from Dushanka Marjan.
Good afternoon, Chairman Berg, Commissioners, Director Anya. Hello, everybody. I just want to highlight just a few points in reference to the licensing division, some key numbers that I'd like to share with the group. Specifically, our new licenses, and the 93% number is key. We just implemented the option for new applicants to be able to apply for their licenses electronically. And in September, when we implemented this, we had about 70% of our new applicants apply electronically. And as of January of 21, we were reaching the number of 93%. So that is really great news. It helps streamline the process and get these licenses out to our licensees as quickly as possible. That's very key, especially during these times. Also, our online renewal numbers, once again, 97% of our licensees renewed online. That's a 17% increase from last year. So that is a key figure for us. And then sticking to we also have our 2021 strategic goals and objectives. And that is to enhance, one of them is to enhance our online brand registrations procedures and processes for our licensees. How can we make that process more user-friendly? And we have implemented, we haven't implemented it yet, we're in the testing phases, but we're very close to implementation. This is just information, we've gotten some feedback from our licensees. They're utilizing the online brand registration option, and we have some feedback, and we're looking at enhancing the current process. So I do want to say that we're in the testing phases of that and looking forward to implementing that as soon as possible. Also wanted to give an update on the online fine payments. We are very close, hopefully. We're continuing to work with the bank and our IT division on that matter as well. So hopefully we'll have some updates for you on that. And streamlining some of our internal processes and procedures. We completed phase 2 of our voucher processing. That's very significant. It's an added step. It was added step that we had to do in licensing for our payments, and that step is no longer required due to some streamlining we did, working very closely with IT on this. So I'm happy to report that has been completed. And then once again, you know, it's very important, and I'd like to thank Director Enya and the commissioners and the chairman for all of your support during this time. The licensing division's key goal right now is really to try to, you know, assist our licensees with any inquiries, any inquiries regarding their applications, anything that they need. We're here to help and support them, and we are doing this, you know, the best to our ability, and right now remotely it's working out very well. So we've had some very positive results on our end, and I'd like to thank everybody. And so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask, and thank you once again.
Dashanka, it's Commissioner Span Cooper. I do have a question. I'm shooting in the dark because I can't see the graph as we talk. But I think for January, there were 150 licenses issued versus 2020. It was, I think I saw 136, 137. And I think it was license issued. And I found it compelling, and I wanted to talk about an indicator that you might be looking at, because I would think that based on everything that's going on in the universe, that number would have declined or retracted. So can you speak to that?
Sure. I think you're probably looking at the new license figures, the new licenses that we issued. And we had a total of 117 new liquor licenses issued January of 2021. In January of 2020, we had 219.
No, that's not the number I'm looking at.
Yeah,
it's another number.
There was a 23% decrease with the number of new licenses issued in January of 20 compared to 21, which is somewhat expected. So the numbers did go down definitely this January from the prior January as far as new licenses that we issued.
Okay, I think it was another graph, and what I'll do, so as to not hold up the meeting, is I'll probably reach out to you after I'm able to look at it. It was a 150, 143 ratio on something, and it just caught my eye. So
sure.
Let me go back afterwards and reach out to you.
Yeah, please feel free. If you have any questions regarding those figures, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dashanka.
Thank you, Chair.
Great job. I'm glad those vouchers are gone. Receive updates.
Yes, so are we.
I know. Receive division reports on enforcement from Mr. Peterson.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. On the enforcement side, you saw that if you look at the minutes there, the enforcement division conducted 1,183 inspections and found 113 violations in January. On top of that, 98 warnings were issued during new license inspections and COVID-related complaints. We're seeing the COVID complaints falling down now that we're opening up a little bit more, which is good news. During January, we received 109 complaints, which is a 58% decrease from the previous months because of the state moving forward with the governor's plan of reopening. As far as the underage compliance, we're continuing to work to safeguard to make sure that alcohol does not find its way into minors' hands or delivery to. We're continuing to work those cases. Most of them are ongoing right now. It's been it's a time-consuming way of approaching it, but it's something that is necessary, and we are very successful in those investigations. As far as training, education, I think you'll see that Supervisor Williams attended a week-long training course that was provided by the U.S. Secret Service. This is how to obtain digital evidence. This is, I guess, as high-tech as you can really get. You can see that once we end, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with the proper amount of supervisors, inspectors, and agents. there's plenty of work out there. We need those additional bodies, of course, to conduct it. We're putting our training components, we're putting our manpower plan in with the strategic plan that was presented. You'll see the whole rollout of the direction that we're going, and we're trying to get ahead of it and stay ahead of it. The kind of a fun one that I threw in there was the alcohol importation section was the boozy bombs. There's so many crazy things out there that are going on. We take each one seriously, and just today I received information that we issued another cease and desist order for people that are making alcohol or selling it illegally. We're spending a lot of time on the World Wide Web trying to keep that from getting out of hand. When we hit the phase 5 of Restore Illinois, we'll resume some of the more traditional ways of enforcing the underage compliance. And I believe that is it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, I don't believe anyone has any questions, Les, because that was so thorough. Thank you so much. It's a very difficult job you do there. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legal reports, updates. Just Director Enya or someone from legal? I'm not sure.
Avi, I believe, is going to do legal's report.
Thank you, Director Enya. Then we will turn it over to Avi Zizek.
Thank you, commissioners and Director Enya. Just a little bit of short synopsis of some of what the legal division has accomplished over the last month. Of course, we are eagerly awaiting any potential general counsel hiring that we'll have to go through. Ask Director Enya for any questions about that. We assisted the commissioners in going through various bills and legislation that has either been put forward by the General Assembly or that we are possibly contemplating moving through the General Assembly process, as Director Enya previously discussed. One of the big things that we have been spending a large amount of our time on over the last month and for the last over the past year essentially has been answering issues related to COVID-19, be it from consumers, be it from our licensees, and keeping that information, all the interested parties updated about that. In terms of just the overall the legal capacity in terms of conducting disposing of cases, we are able to continue working remotely, handling cases that come through. We hold pre-disciplinary conferences over the phone or if necessary via video conference. We also have been able to transition our sale of alcohol to minors process for this, so that the first-time violators are now participating in a webinar presentation with some added PowerPoints and videos in conjunction with our industry education division. We've been able to do that twice so far, and it's been pretty successful. So we're hoping to be able to continue that. Those who are second-time offenders, we're discussing them, one at a time with the individuals and kind of to further encourage them to understand and learn from what happened. And then in terms of appeals, we were able to, during January, we were able to assist the commissioners in holding an appeal via WebEx. And I think that has, I'm sure we'll discuss it more when we get to the appeals on the agenda, but that has been fairly successful in terms of holding our on-the-record appeals via the WebEx format. Again, there are cases that come through. We have the opportunity to review them. Additionally, we are assisting the Attorney General in the various litigation that we are involved in. There's several cases both in the circuit courts in Illinois as well as federal cases. If there are any other questions, I think that is it for legal.
Thank you, Avi. We'll receive a report on industry education from Michelle Flagg.
Good afternoon. So one thing to highlight tomorrow, we'll be taping a webinar via WebEx, and the focus will be, it's for Black History Month. And so the focus will be on entrepreneurs in the liquor industry. So this is a webinar for, or I guess the focus, Black distillers, winemakers, and brewers, and where we focus on their path on becoming an entrepreneur. And so the participants, they're outlined in my report. And so that's tomorrow. And then what we'll do is I'll tape it and then post the recording on our YouTube channel the next day. Another highlight as it relates to prevention campaigns, March will be National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week, March 22nd through 28th, and then April, Alcohol Awareness Month. And so with those two events coming on, we're working on engaging youth groups and organizations as well as parent organizations to continue the discussion for underage prevention. Because although this goes in hand with enforcement, because not only do we have the enforcement arm, but if we can decrease access from parents, other friends, or people that are of age buying liquor, et cetera, for underage, then that's another avenue as it relates to underage prevention. Let's see, and in addition to that, we keep the social media as well as our website up to date as it relates to where we are in the phases for Restore Illinois. So indoor dining, etc. But as it was mentioned before, the entire state is in phase 4. Are there any questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner Polito Sanchez Michelle. I noted in your report that there are some FOIAs. Wondering if you can give us an example of some FOIAs that we've received.
Okay, so actually, Avi handles the actual FOIAs, but they've typically been, the media requests have been related to enforcement. So it's come up as far as where, like what was the fine, or where has a fine been issued, or how many enforcement actions have been taken since COVID has started. So they've primarily been related, those types of questions.
Thank you. Avi, do you have anything to add?
Sure. For the most part, many of our FOIAs are actually come from, I would say, from insurance carriers. For the most part, trying to verify the status of licensees that they are that they insure, to ensure that they don't have any disciplinary history that would make them a greater risk. We have periodically we do get FOIA requests from the media. For many of them have been related to our disciplinary conduct, disciplinary activities, or related to ongoing cases or concluded cases. Also, we do get a decent number of FOIAs looking for copies of documentation, such as copies of licenses, copies of applications. Oftentimes they are because of various ongoing litigation that may be occurring, and they're looking for a copy of who owned the business, who signed for the license, et cetera.
Thank you, Avi.
And thank you to Michelle as well. We can also have a monthly Foia report sent to the board if that would be something of interest to everyone. Typically, we do see those requests. If everyone's interested, we can have Avi give a part of the packet containing the Foia requests as well.
Oh, and all right, I just saw the note. If I just from Commissioner as far as the online campaigns, the October summit for the College Town Summit, with March and April being National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week and Alcohol Awareness Month, kind of gearing organizations to get ready for Red Ribbon Week so that it's not just specific times of the year where we're focusing on underage prevention. So it's almost like all year round. So yeah, so that was one other thing.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner O'Connell. I think your idea to supply a FOIA report monthly would be a good one.
Okay, thank you for that. We will include that in the future. No problem. Thank you, Michelle. Looking forward to the webinar tomorrow. Item number 8, Secretary Jaros, were there any public comments received via email, written, or telephonic at this time?
No, there were not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that no one requested to address the board at this time. Item number 9, board comments. Does any board member care to make a comment at this time? Commissioner Span Cooper?
No, I'm good, Chair Berg.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibbons?
Yes, just a quick comment. Many of the things I've heard today are very positive, and an industry that we're in tends to be on the negative side. We're always enforcing, which is our job. But, I see with some of these grants and some of these opportunities that will be coming up that we might be able to stick some positives in there that may make the people in the industry feel a little better about themselves. So I look forward to that.
Thank you. Commissioner LaMalfa?
She on mute, Commissioner.
Hi, nothing from me, but I'd love to attend tomorrow as well. So I'll find the link to that. Signed up for it.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connell?
Not at this time, no.
Commissioner Powell?
Not at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Polito Sanchez?
I'm good as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Must have wrapped everything up very thoroughly. Thank you to Chima and all of our staff for that. Item number 10, executive session. At this time, the commission will adjourn to executive session. It will be closed to the public. The commission is entering executive session for the purpose of discussing testimony and evidence presented to the commission during a hearing. This is authorized pursuant to section 2C1 and 4 of the Open Meetings Act. Members of the public will no longer be able to see or hear the meeting, although the meeting will not end. Upon conclusion of executive session, the commission will return to the regular meeting, which is open to the public. Do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session at this time?
So
I believe that was
Commissioner Powell moves.
and Polito Sanchez second.
yes, thank you.
Thank you. Been properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jaros, could you please call a roll for us?
Chair Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We are adjourned to executive session.